What's up gamers, Dreamcastguy here, talking today about Super Mario 3D All-Stars on the Nintendo Switch. But for this video, I'm going to be focusing my review purely on the collection itself and not the crazy amount of controversy that this game has already stirred up. While it is pretty clear that the whole limited release thing is pretty dumb, and yes, of course I wish that Mario Galaxy was contained in this package, it's not. So what we're going to be doing here is just talking about these games, the technical aspect, and what's good or bad about them. Now, of course, I have to do this video as a brutally honest review because I have a very long history with each of these games. Mario 64 specifically is one that I actually grew up with and have so many great childhood memories. But are these three games actually good in 2020? Let's find out. Now, in this, we're getting three separate experiences, which is Super Mario Sunshine, originally from the Nintendo Gamecube, Super Mario 64, which obviously is from the Nintendo 64, and Super Mario Galaxy, which was a huge hit on the Nintendo Wii. Now, each of these games is very different, but I also love them for very different reasons. And surprisingly, I want to start off by talking about Sunshine because this is one that I have been a very public hater about. Over the course of the last 10 years, this is one of those experiences that I tried very late. I definitely wasn't like a Generation 1 Sunshine player, but when I finally decided to pick up a GameCube and sit down with this game, I thought it kinda sucked. I mean, I thought the idea of trying to clean up Delfino Island and going on my own little adventure with my flood pack on, being able to jetpack around these levels, I found it to be exceedingly boring, and now I've completely had my mind changed. Super Mario Sunshine is a really good game, but now that we're getting into it, the biggest thing you need to realize about this collection is that they didn't really change a single thing. This is the same controls, it's the same islands, there's nothing really added to this, there's no like special unlockable DLC, you're just getting three entire experiences, which these games are in their original entirety, but also with a fresh coat of paint. This is a little bit spruced up. People have already dug through the code of these games, and while I'm running around in Mario Sunshine, I'm sure you notice that this looks pretty clean. It's pretty crisp. For a thing that came out over a decade ago, it actually still looks pretty modern. People have seen that inside the programming of this game, these are running on basically customized emulators designed by Nintendo themselves. And so while these aren't technically, full-blown remasters, they're not remakes, they're not some sort of like super fancy edition, they clean up very, very nice. And Super Mario Sunshine is one of those games that manages to kind of blow me away because I feel like a lot of people did not give it a chance. At least I know that I didn't. But one that is already a very beloved classic is Super Mario 64, and unfortunately, while this is my favorite game growing up, it's also unfortunately the weakest part of this collection, but just because they did the least with it. Now let's just take a look at it. This is very, very rough. Now I kind of hope that they would do something to this, whether it be bumping up the resolution. Technically, even though I'm rendering this video at 1080p, this gameplay is stuck at 720p, and a lot of the assets, a lot of these polygons and stuff are looking very, very funky in 2020. Like, even one of the other weird things is that this is not letterbox, it's not full screen, it's constantly tiny shrunk. Like, it doesn't even touch the top and bottom of your TV. It's just this little square of gameplay floating in the center of your television, and it's kind of bizarre, but this is still Mario. It's still the Nintendo 64 game we all love, and I think it still looks pretty nice. It still has a decent frame rate, it's still fun, and of course it's still nice to run around. There is one thing about this though that kind of annoyed the heck out of me, which is that I'm somebody that does not like vibration. Typically, if a game doesn't have a bunch of like important vibration information, I'll turn it off. Since I play video games like in 10-hour sessions a lot because I'm trying to make videos and stuff, I will deactivate the vibration function so that I don't have to charge my controllers as much. There are absolutely no special options at all in any of these three games. You can't make things uninverted, you can't change the way that the speed works, you can't make it where your joysticks are more sensitive, and you cannot turn off vibration, which means that since I have never played Nintendo 64 games with vibration, I don't like the rumble pack for the N64, it's very, very jarring to suddenly have this shaking in my hands every time I get tapped by an enemy. That being said, Super Mario 64 is still a really good game. It's nice to fight Bowser, it's nice to get my winged cap and fly around in all these little special zones. It's still a fantastic game. But now let's talk about Super Mario Galaxy, because this is the one that I think the most people are going to be blown away by, because they had to do more substantial changes with this. Since it was originally released on the Nintendo Wii, it of course had a lot of different like motion functionality. It had a lot of stuff where you'd use your Wii motion to actually try and, collect these little star shards. By shaking the Wiimote itself, you do your little spin attack, and they've decided to actually go in here and rework how the game works in some nice ways. Now, the biggest thing is that obviously now we don't have all those like TV motion sensor stuff that we had to have with the Nintendo Wii. Now everything is just done with a very standard Joy-Con. But they also did some other stuff, like instead of having to physically shake the controller to do your spin attack, which is very crucial for fighting enemies and collecting different power-ups and stuff, now you can simply press the Y button. And I gotta say that this makes things feel a lot easier. As somebody that actually did a 100% save file on the original Super Mario Galaxy, doing every single level, getting every single star, now things feel much easier in my opinion, just because now we're not having to waggle things around. Now, of course, there are some levels that still require some motion controls, and they can't really be changed. So like stuff when you're doing the Stingray racing and stuff, you still have to actually use the controller and tilt it back and forth to do these style of challenges. But everything feels much more responsive. I think it's just the fact that the way that the sensors worked in the Nintendo Wii were very primitive. I mean, all three of these games, the most impressive part about Sunshine, 64, and also Galaxy is that each of these games was incredibly groundbreaking, because a lot of times they were the first platformers that were trying to do these styles of things. Like Super Mario 64 is actually one of the first 3D platformers ever made. I mean, these things kind of invented the rule set that everything follows, and so seeing them just slightly improved by just having a better controller and a bigger freaking resolution for the screen, all of this is nice. But let's face facts, the main reason that a lot of us are buying these games isn't to try and get them in like 8K resolution, it's not to have them in a modern style, it's just simply because we want to play them in handheld, right? I mean, that's why we bought a Nintendo Switch, as this is a super cool modern Game Boy. Well, let's check that out. Say you have a long day at work and you're like, alright, time to neglect my laundry and play my Switch all day in handheld. In handheld, I think that Mario 64 looks the best because there are the problems when it's blown up. I think that this game looks really good when it's just on my tiny little screen. Mario Sunshine, also very good, but the one thing I have that's a little bit strange is Super Mario Galaxy feels very different. Because this requires motion controls, your options are either physically tilting the entire console or playing it by setting the system down, doing all the little functionality now with your just freestanding Joy-Cons. And it works. The other things they added is that you can actually physically touch the screen to shoot your little star shards to weaken enemies or to collect things. And it is all functional. I think that this still feels like a collection that I wish it had just a tiny bit more. When I look at something like this very lazy menu system, the fact that there's not like concept art, there's no like cool audio logs, there's no ability to really see anything fun and extra, there's no real unlockables, there's nothing in here that feels like it's fancy or deluxe. This is just a straight up cut and dry collection. And the reason this kind of disappoints me is because Nintendo is sort of famous for having the best classic games of all time. Like, they're definitely the company that has the biggest ever catalog of just classic games that everybody grew up with. Almost everybody has some sort of crazy awesome childhood memory about these experiences. And so the fact that they couldn't just include, some sort of screenshots of early developer builds or maybe some sort of like cheat code system, all this game has is straight up the original games in the original format, but with some extra change stuff so it looks like a Nintendo Switch controller, and also an ability to listen to music whenever you want. I kind of just wanted a little bit more because while I don't regret spending $60 on this, these games are definitely worth the $60 I paid, I still just wish that they'd shown that extra bit of passion. It just shows that Nintendo will do the bare minimum because they know they can get away with it. Is this a bad game? Absolutely not. Could it have been a lot better? Yes, definitely. It is just so obvious that this could have been more, and they decided to choose less. Okay, so we've heard a little bit of bad and a lot of good, but let's go over the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Super Mario 3D All-Stars an 8 out of 10. Alright, so I just want to acknowledge the fact that this is one of those games that's going to sell crazy numbers no matter what, but just as an extra added note, if you have never played these games before, I think that this is a great collection to go back and revisit them, but also, if you're somebody that did grow up with these and you do want to check them out, I still think that this is a fun game to go back because it gives you a chance to judge them again. I'm very glad that I had my eyes open to the fact that Super Mario Sunshine, in fact, does not suck. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Oh man, I've been playing so much Mario this last 24 hours, and I got no regrets. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.